On this episode of Modern Sales Wisdom Podcast, we're going to be speaking to Yiannis. Yiannis is the co-founder and CEO of Covve. Covve, yes, the personal CRM system. If you want to know anything about networking, building meaningful relationships, you're going to have a system in place that works. Covve is one of those systems that can help you maintain that and build that. And they've just launched a new product. It's called Cosmos. And yes, there is a discount code in the show notes. Let's listen to what he has to say.
Phone calls are very, very important. I'm proactively making sure I call people because it creates that vulnerability and that helps form relationships. Digital means help, but they don't replace physical. Prioritize the way you interact and make sure you're being consistent and you don't leave your network to reactively change. Where we help individuals build relationships, and that evolved the product to be much more like you would expect an exercise app to be. So it will help you build a habit.
Building meaningful relationships and networks is a skill of its own. And Yiannis is going to tell us about why he started Covve and what the science is behind building relationships that matter and that last, and who to choose from your relationships in order to build networks. It's a fantastic episode and it's really crucial for us in sales. And they've just started a new product, which is called Cosmos. And if you go to the website, expandyourcosmos.com, and type in the code MSW24. I'll repeat, MSW24. Everything's in the show notes. You will receive 20% off, and it's a gift from him to us in the sales community here at Modern Sales Wisdom to enjoy the product. Now, if you haven't done so and you want to be part of this group who believe that it's great to get inspired and learn about sales and share the modern sales wisdom, well then please smash that subscribe button, leave me that like, no matter where you're listening from, Apple Music or Spotify or here on YouTube. Thank you for being part of this community. And now let's get to the conversation with Yiannis. I'm not going to disappoint you. It's a really great conversation. Enjoy. Yiannis, it's so great to have you on the show, and I'm really excited about this one because it's a topic. We're going to be talking about so many things which are really hard for us if we're in the virtual world, in the real world. Who do we contact? How do we stay in contact? But then again, how do we use technology to do it? And you've created a product and started a company many years ago that solves this issue. And I'd love to know a little bit, how's the original story of Covve, which is your company, and maybe a few things about you as well.
Yeah, thanks, Henry, and thanks for the invitation. I love the talk. I love the podcast, so I'm really glad to be here. I'll tell you how it all started. Basically, Alex, my co-founder, and myself, we used to work for large corporates in London, and it's interesting because it very quickly dawned on us that a lot of our career success, both in business development, sales, but also in recruitment, came from relationships. And we were frustrated that although we worked with very big companies, we were never properly trained on how to build relationships. We were told to network. And I think there's a huge difference between the two. And I come from a very small place. I come from Cyprus originally, and I love connecting with people. So I'm naturally curious on what the person does, where they're from, if they're open, a bit personal details as well. And I quickly realized that actually this curiosity and the fact that I really wanted to make a genuine connection helped me a lot in my career. So the frustration was that why are we not being taught to do this? Why aren't new people coming on board, these big companies taught how to do this? And why don't we have the tools? So it's both the tools and the education. So, like CRM systems, they're all about the deal. I'm sure you know. So we created Covve to actually fill this gap, to actually pass knowledge and tools that are much more about building the relationship rather than closing the deal and waiting for the career progression to come following that relationship building.
This is a huge topic, especially for us if we're remote and virtual and trying to build those relationships. And as you said, we are being told all the time, network and meet these people. There's always a reason to call. And
exactly.
How has that kind of evolved? You've had the company for a couple of years now. The product, I'm sure, has evolved. Are there things where you go we've done tweaks which have helped us because we realized that this is actually better for building relationships or more meaningful relationships?
Yes, absolutely. So we are very agile as a company. We start actually, to be honest with you, we started a lot on the B2B side of things.
Mhm.
So we started speaking with large companies. We had a lot of contacts with large companies. We're both working in London. So we reached out to companies to actually use this solution as a B2B play. Interestingly, we soon realized that many people were personally interested. So we evolved the app into more of a B2C offering, although we do have B2B as well, but more of a B2C offering where we help individuals build relationships. And that evolved the product to be much more like you would expect an exercise app to be. So it will help you build a habit and dedicate time to reach out, because I love like putting Cove next to what we do for exercise or diet. And the reason is because when we're relationship building, you never see the results instantly. Like, I'm not going to exercise and do a bit of like crunches and get a six pack. I'm going, yeah, I wish I did, but that's not the case, as you know. So it's the same with relationship building. You're not going to go on an event and meet 100 people and like close deals. So you still have to be very consistent. You still need to dedicate a lot of time to it and make a habit out of it. So we evolved the company, first of all, the tools to be much more habit building. So help people build a habit. And also the education part that I mentioned came in. We soon realized that this was a big problem. People are not very adept in building relationships. You talked about online. Digital is making it much harder. So we wanted to bring together thought experts that shared a lot of knowledge about how do you build relationships? How do you do it in the new world that we live in a much more digital environment? So that's the other thing. And the last one I will mention is that we listen to our users a lot. So we got a lot of requests for mini products, as we call them. So we have a very powerful business card scanner to scan paper cards into digital ones. It's because everyone was disappointed by the accuracy of other tools. So we used AI. We got a very, very accurate tool out there. Then when COVID hit, there was no exchange of paper. So we created a digital business card and with a physical contactless one as well. So we are working very fast based on the environment that we live in and also by user feedback. And now we ended up, just to summarize, we ended up with a very powerful platform, both throughout the relationship cycle. So from when you meet someone, exchange of contact details, into follow-up, relationship management, and all the education that comes with it.
I think you mentioned one thing, and I want to talk about this today because it launched today, as I understand, which is Cosmos, which is kind of bringing everything together, which you've done into a completely new sphere. Maybe you can give a few spotlights on what that means and how that's going to change how we interact, this is, if you have physical cards, obviously that's when you meet people in person, but how do you make these experiences good, and how do you create those habits very fast, because everybody knows those trade shows, you have 20 cards, 50 cards in your pocket or on your notepad, and you're like, who did what? And it's really hard to get out of it afterwards.
Exactly. It's very exciting that we're having this today. It's been a very busy weekend. Cosmos, I'll tell you about Cosmos. So Cosmos, how did that come about? So we, as I said, on the digital business card side of things, we serve large companies, many big, large airlines, telcos, services firms, and we are getting a lot of feedback from. So we have a B2C, as I said, but we do B2B as well. So we have a lot of feedback telling us that actually the actual physical product is important. And the reason, so we were actually a bit surprised, but the reason is both the fact that there is a culture there. When you meet someone, you don't want to just pick up the phone. So they like using the card, and most of our companies use their cards actively. So these are contactless cards. So we had this at the back of our mind. Wow. So these cards are a valuable thing. They've got the branding of the company. The material is important to them. Some do bamboo, so that's whole. So we had that thought at the back of our mind. And then the other thought was what I told you before about exercise. So, and now, we're all wearing fitness monitors and we're trying to use the interaction of hardware and software to help us build this habit, as you said, very quickly. So we said, why don't we bring these two together? And what Cosmos is, which is a very new product for us, but using all the tech that we have. So we're using the whole platform of Cove. what it is, it's a very premium card. It's a metal card. It's nano coated with a ceramic material, so it's very long lasting. It's laser engraved, personalized, limited. Now the launch is going to be a limited launch, and it's a smart card. So this metal card, you touch it on other person's phone, brings up your profile so they can instantly save your contact details, but then it tracks that interaction. So you can see your stats on your phone. You can see how many cards you exchange. You get pinged as soon as you exchange the card. So you can take a quick note. So this is Henry. This is a podcast he does. This is his main company. This is what interests him. Or you can even just scan Henry's paper card. So it gives you a huge variety of options that you can do straight away. But also, very importantly, it gives you a way to put targets and to follow up with your contacts. So it's going to remind you to follow up. We have a full AI assistant in it that you can interact through email, and you can actually ask it to give notes. I'm not going to bore you with all the features, but the idea is it's that seamless interaction of the physical space, where the hardware, the physical space that we live in, and the digital world. And we want to make that seamless. And that's what Cosmos is.
If you haven't done so, then please smash that subscribe button and leave me a like. It makes a huge difference. The more people we have engaging on the show, the better the show's going to get. I do it out of love for the sales community, for you guys. Enjoy. One thing that comes to my mind straight away, and maybe this is a little shout out to your website as well, because you have some great learning materials on there. Learning material about, you speak to a lot of thought leaders. And there was one video from a Oxford University professor, and he was talking about how we organize our relationships. You have closer and it gets further and further away. And one thing which I always wonder, especially in this crowded social media space, and I'm not gonna lie, I feel since I've moved away from the big cities, because I have a family now, and my network expands dramatically just because of all these people that I meet online. But what's the real question which we have to ask ourselves about having meaningful conversations or meaningful relationships? I mean, is it quality versus quantity question, or like, have you guys figured something out about that?
So as you said, we have a lot of knowledge ourselves, but we do rely on experts. We love speaking with experts. Professor Robin Dunbar, he's a leading anthropologist. So just to give a bit of intro, he spent 25 years studying how primates form relationships, and then he moved into looking at how sapiens form relationships, and he's got amazing research out there. So we've done a series of interviews with him. He's renowned for Dunbar's number. So going to your point, Dunbar's number is a number that says that an average human person can maintain up to 150 meaningful relationships. And Professor Dunbar explains that you have the circles, as you said. So you have the very, very close friends, and then you have like a bigger circle, a bigger, until you go to 150. And interestingly, this changes throughout our lives. So at Cove, we definitely want to give you, first of all, an understanding of who these people are, because we're being very reactive about it. So we go to a conference and like, yeah, I met this guy. We're not being proactive. This 150 switch based on circumstances that we usually don't control, whereas we should be controlling. So going to 2 points. One is, how do we manage that network? And going to your point, how do we do it digitally?
Yeah.
So I can give you a bit of insight from our experience. It seems that it's really powerful. It's much more powerful, and Professor Dunbar confirmed this in one of the talks we had. It's much more powerful meeting someone in person. And although we have all this tech, subtle changes in body language, even subtle, Professor Dunbar was telling me, even subtle touches of the shoulder, all of these things are very fundamental on how we build trust. But on the other hand, technology like the phone and Zoom and like all the platforms online, they help us actually stay in touch. So I might meet Henry like digitally, but then actually meeting you in person will enhance that relationship, and then we can continue digital as well. So I think, going to your questions, the best way to go about it is a combination of meeting, ideally face to face, then video, then call, then text and email. So prioritizing the way you interact.
Mm-hmm.
I think phone calls are very, very important. Many times we forget that we should be calling. I mean, we like we feel more comfortable slowly texting and sending a LinkedIn message. But calling, if you remember, I called you right away as soon as you reached
Yeah.
out to email. I'm proactively making sure I call people because it creates that vulnerability, and that helps form relationships.
Yeah.
Whereas an email puts you in your comfort zone where you don't have to interact. So I think one is how we interact is very important. So using the digital means, but making sure that we do it in the priority we mentioned. And the second thing is consistency. So it's very important to actually make sure that you are proactive about who the circle is and consistently reach out. If you don't speak to someone for like 3 months, then you're not going to be forming a relationship. The relationship is going to die out. So I think as soon as you meet someone, if there's rapport, and Professor Dan has an amazing episode on the 7 pillars of friendship, which is the subliminal things we notice when we meet someone to build that connection. So if there's rapport, you make sure you follow up to build a bit more rapport and then follow up again to build trust. So to your point, I think digital means help, but they don't replace physical. Prioritize the way you interact and make sure you're being consistent and you don't leave your network to reactively change.
Mhm. One other thing which I learned on one of your learning platforms, it was there's different ways of maintaining relationships, and there's something about using something called sporadic, I can relate to this. You're sitting on the train, you're on your way to work, to the office, you get out your phone, you're like, man, I have to, I need to write Yiannis, and then you type in your phone, and yeah, then you've done it. But that's not really how you do relationships. And then on the other hand, we all have, oh, I'm going to go to this conference and I'm going to go to this conference and I'm going to be very intentional about coming back with hot leads of 50 people that I've met. But that's not really, it turns out, the real masterpiece of building good and meaningful relationships on the long run. And of course, these are all good things to do. But at the end of the day, we have to think about working in systems. And if you work in systems, you need to prioritize. I mean, if I sit in the train and I have this train of thought in my head and goes like, yeah, I need to write Giannis because I just thought of him. Yes, that's great. But how do you know who to put into your inner circle? How do you deliberately build good contacts or a good network? Because I have people who I think are great, but I don't know if they should be in that list.
Yes, I think so. First of all, I love the fact that you quoted Mo. That's Mo Bano.
Yeah.
He's amazing. One of the thought leaders that we collaborate with. And Mo talks about systems, of course, instead of sporadic relationship systems. And that's what we try to do with our tools. So first of all, you build a list of people that you believe are very useful for you. Like if I talk about myself personally, I consider powerful people in my network, not the people necessarily that have business opportunities for me, but the people that are very reciprocal about networking. So the people that I will call, hey Henry, I need a contact in Germany in this space, and you'll say I've got exactly the guy for you. So to me, those are the most valuable people in my network, and I do this for them as well. So we have this way of expanding our networks. So I think, but everyone has their own values. But going back to your question, so like our tool, Cove, Cosmos now has these features as of course as well. They proactively prompt you to reach out to people, and they will flag when you're losing touch with people. So what we do in Cove, we help you choose, but then as Cove exposes the people you're losing touch with, you should make a very informed decision. Is this person someone that I want to keep in my network? And maybe it's not, and that's not necessarily bad. So you can drop them in priority and contact them less often, or not proactively and leave it to be reactive. But it helps you actually gain control, because it's going to flag that you haven't spoken with Henry in 3 weeks, and I can say, oh my God, I'm going to call him now, and then I will just update the fact that I did, and then it's going to do it again in 3 months. Or I can decide that no, Henry, it's okay, I can speak to him once a year, that's fine. So it puts control back to you rather than leaving it to chance.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're trying to do. Expose all the information so that you can make the decision. Now, regarding the decision, as I said, everyone has their own priorities. I love trust and reciprocity. I think those are very, very important aspects. of who my network is.
This is giving me some more food for thought because
Mm,
I'm trying to figure out. I love everybody who I am in contact with. Don't get me wrong, but there is a limit.
of course.
With thousands of contacts that you collect over your working life, it goes very quickly that it's hard to keep your eye on it. And choosing people that can open other doors as your primary contacts for meaningful relationships, I think is a really great um, a great way to do it. Another thing which I think is hard, especially for us in sales, when it comes to meaningful relationships, it's follow-ups. I mean, I'm a manager, I've lead teams, and there's always a reason to call. But the question is, then people sit there and go like, well, that's not my reason to call, and it's really hard to bring that across. Do you have tips and tricks for that where you go like, okay, well, meaningful relationships do need a certain sense of quality, and how do you find that quality that you can bring across? Because a new product is normally not a meaningful relationship. It's a pitch call, right? So
Yeah, of course. So I think 2 points there. One, what we do from a platform perspective, we scan news, but not just news that mention you. You can add your own topics. It can be your
Mhm.
sports team, so that's a great excuse to call, congratulate someone from the sports team. Unfortunately, I'm not into football. My business life has suffered greatly because of. So, but you can do sports team. Like I'm into my barbecue, so you can have hobbies and business and industries and companies and everything you want. So that's one. Of course, I'm a very big believer in note taking. So note taking will help you realize what's important for the other person and put the appropriate topics and notes and reminders for anniversaries and birthdays, etc. But here's the best one, in my opinion. So in my opinion, the best one goes back to what I told you about the priority of who is in my network. The best one to me is introductions. So the best follow-ups I've had are introduction follow-ups. So someone will reach out and they'll say, "Hey, Yiannis, I've been speaking with this guy. They're a great networker. I think, and this is their priorities in life. And I think you would definitely benefit by meeting." Now, it's amazing because that thing creates an opportunity for me because they just introduced a new person that's useful for me. But it puts that first person top in my radar. Like that
Mhm.
top, that he's always in mind. And I think it's amazing because it gives a follow-up excuse as well. So let's say that you introduce me to someone and say, "Hey, Yanis, I think you should meet this guy. He's amazing. He's doing this podcast. You love him." I meet this person, and then I should follow up and thank you. So we will get in touch as well as soon as I thank you. If I don't, you will definitely follow up and say, "Hey, did you guys connect? Or should I nudge him again? So
Mhm.
should I poke him again?" So it creates a short space in time where the interaction becomes frequent again. It realigns the fact that it realigns the topics where we have commonality on. Like you'll say, "I have this guy and he's in Germany and he's in sales." So Germany, Henry, Germany, sales, tech. So all of this subliminally are in my mind. So I think the introductions are the best. It's giving, it's not taking. It's giving, and it's still an amazing touch.
Yeah, and commonalities, as I know. And I just learned that you love barbecues, and I'm a trained chef, so I hope we meet in
No,
person.
no, I'm doing a lot, Henry. That's a huge step. If we open it now, we're gonna go past time. I smoke, I cook, I do the lot.
Oh, I think we could have a whole podcast on that one. Um, I and we're coming to the end because it's always about 20 minutes, and I want to be respectful as well of the time and everything. It's been a real pleasure talking to you, and I've really enjoyed your product, and I want to thank you for showing us and telling us what you do and why you do it, and also bringing the world together in a meaningful way because it's going to make my life much easier. So thank you for inventing that great product and having that fantastic company. And maybe as a last question, on the topic of networking and everything you know now, what is something you wish you would have known earlier? I mean, you started a company because you didn't think there was something out there. What would you wish you would have started earlier in this response?
That's a great question. I think it would be amazing if I realized how this topic is not common knowledge much earlier in my life. So I think it's something that came natural to me. And then it took time for me to realize that this is not like how everyone is functioning. And then COVID hammered that in, because like so many people, because we work a lot with the US, that's our main market. So many people have commented on how isolated they felt and how we helped them reach out to people they cared about. And suddenly I realized that, okay, we're talking about career and sales, but this is like life changing. Like the biggest study on human life, the Harvard study of adulthood, was it? I'm
I know the
forgetting.
one you mean.
I don't know. Yeah, but I don't know how it was. An 80-year-old study showed that social interactions are the number one thing for happiness. And so I think I wish I realized much sooner what a big lack we have, how social media is pushing us away from staying traditionally in touch, how important it is to our lives and careers. So I wish I knew that sooner, that this is not common sense. Like, and wish I would have embarked on this mission years before I did. And actually, Henry, before I close, I'd love to give your audience a special code for Cosmos. So we launched Cosmos. I'm sure you'll add it somewhere in the notes, but we're on
I will.
expandyourcosmos.com. And we have a code for your listeners. The first one, actually, we just launched today. The first one we're going to give out, and we're not going to be giving out a lot, which is our code is MSW24, because we're changing years as well. So anyone who puts that in our site will get 20% discount on our product.
Huge.
And the product has all the education that you mentioned. Like Mo Banal, Professor Dunbar, there's a huge library that we're updating all the time with experts talking about how to form real relationships. So I'd love to take the opportunity to pass it to your audience.
We'll definitely do that. Thank you so much for that, Yiannis. That's really, really great. And I'm really thankful for it. I'll put it in the show notes, that's for sure. I'll mention it again everywhere I can, because it's a great product and I'm really looking forward. And I hope many people get their hands on it and have really meaningful connections and meaningful relationships. Thank you so
Great.
much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. Thanks, Henry.
I really hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. I thought it was great. Yiannis gave up all this information about not only how he started Covve, but why it matters and how to have these great conversations. There's so much more on their website with a learnings page. Check it out. Honestly, it's absolutely fantastic. And if you haven't done so and you've enjoyed this and you also believe that modern sales wisdom should be spread everywhere and you want to enjoy more of this content, then please hit that subscribe button, activate the bell, leave me a like. The more engagement we have on the show, the better it's going to get. And I do it out of love, out of passion for you guys, for the sales community. I can't wait to meet you on the next episode. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.